Oh, believe me, Brett, that doesn't stress me out. If things like that stress me out, I'd be dead.
Why don't you, in the middle of 12 noon class, be like, up, no battery.
It stresses Sam out a lot.
No battery. Sorry, can't turn on the music.
Well, let's not get stressed out because this is our Perfect Day podcast.
There we go.
Welcome back, guys. This is Coast Range Podcast, and we are talking about part 2 of our 3-part series, What is Your Perfect Day, or How to Create Your Perfect Day. And we're going to start off by, if you haven't listened to the Perfect Morning podcast, make sure you guys go back and check that out. We quickly kind of just went over what would be an ideal morning to set up an amazing day. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. But some takeaways from it was basically get up, get moving in some way, some type of aerobic activity, get your heart moving a little bit, do some joint rotations. We also talked about spending some kind of time by yourself to journal or set up your day. Brett had discussed that he really likes to think about what are the things he needs to accomplish that day, and kind of writing down his to-do list that day. I like to talk to myself in a bar, and Natalie discussed that she likes to kind of journal, just get everything out onto a piece of paper and write down like some things that she's really thankful for. And then we also discussed just kind of the type of foods you should be eating in the morning, that stuff. So anyways, we don't want to go too deep into it, but if you haven't listened to that podcast, go back and check that out. Today we are going to be talking about what would be an ideal day. I'm going to put a caveat on that and say we understand that nobody is going to have a perfect day.
Right.
No?
And we get it. And so we'll also talk about what are some things when you're on path to having a great day and everything's going good, and then that wrench does get thrown into it. What are some step-by-step things that you can do to kind of like take a step back, reassess, and then get back on track and moving forward? So, welcome to the Perfect Day podcast.
We kind of wanted to start by talking about travel. So what travel looks like to get to and from work if you are someone who's working. Because yes, the ideal day is going to have work in it. But how we can maximize that time. So whether you have a short commute or a long commute, kind of how you can make the best of that. I personally have a longer commute. I probably have the longest commute I've had ever, and I have to completely change my mindset about it. So people always ask me, how do you drive that far? And there's two reasons, really. I love my house, I love where I live, and I love my job. So that already allows me to change my mindset around my travel, because I love those things so much that when I'm going to either one of them, it's a little less stressful for me. But I do try to use that time effectively as well. So there's a few different things that I do. I either listen to podcasts, like this one that you might be listening to.
You listen to yourself?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, totally. No, I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks. Like that's probably what I do the most. And then I listen to music. And it usually changes depending on what has happened in my day or what I'm preparing for in my day. And so I kind of shift between those three things. And I map out my drive in different segments. So I know that from point A to point B, I'm doing this. So I'm revving myself up for the next thing. I also don't have service for a lot of my drives. So I have to do things that are on my phone for a certain portion of my drive. So what I do is when I leave my house, it's kind of like my start. And so I listen to music. And it's usually music that kind of just sets the tone for what my day and what I kind of where I want to shift my mind and those kinds of things, and kind of gets me inspired. And then from there, I'll listen to a podcast or an audiobook. And then on the tail end, I'll listen to music again, which kind of just pumps me up for what I'm about to do, who I'm about to see, that kind of thing. And so I will say, since I've worked at Coast Range CrossFit, that I have not had a stressful drive yet, which is really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Probably mostly because I love my house and I love my job, but I've been able to kind of shift my mindset around it. Like I use it as like it's scheduled into my day as time to enhance like myself. I think if you change your mindset around like investing in yourself during a drive, I think that that's a positive. And like not getting mad at people when they drive slow over Hecker Pass and that kind of thing.
I like that you said invest in yourself. Like this is one of the things that when I was in the military for about 6 months of time, me and Megan moved between Vacaville and Gilroy, and we landed in Pleasanton. And so for 6 months, I was driving an hour to Vacaville, and she was driving an hour to Gilroy, and then we would drive an hour home. And I remember, like, when I first started doing that, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is taking up so much time. Like, I'm always stuck in traffic. Like, why did we do this? And I was so upset about it. And now I live 3 blocks from the gym. And my drive is ridiculous, number one, that I drive because I'm 3 blocks from the gym. I should be walking, right? But I miss that. I miss that hour that I had to myself of just like being able to listen to a podcast or decompress or listen to music or whatever. And the last 2 weeks, I just took up a job at CrossFit HQ when I drive over the hill where you live, Natalie, now. And so now every week I get an hour drive to myself. And I was like,
this is awesome.
This is nice. You know what I mean? And so it's like one of those, I have one of those moments of like, we make what we want of the situation we're in.
Right.
You know, so like the first time I was doing that, I was like super bummed out that I had to do it.
Right.
Because I wasn't making the most of the situation that I was in. And I would have been great if I was listening to podcasts or taking advantage of that time to learn or something like that. And now that I know that, and I realize that
better.
I'm like, wow, this is an hour that I get to expand my education or my knowledge or just zone out.
Right. Well, and depending on what field of work you're in, that can be so much more critical than you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, think about our coaching career or even just being in the gym atmosphere, there's a lot of give and give, and it's the best. Like, it's the best thing ever. But there's actually a lot of my drive home that's spent decompressing, where it's just thinking about the different conversations that I've had and going through the process of like, okay, do I need to think about this further, or should I reach out to this person, or kind of like taking mental notes of like other people's lives too, so that when I walk in the door, I'm not like a zombie.
Yeah.
Which does happen a lot. Like my husband could probably attest to that I walk in the door and I'm like, oh gosh, I know everything about everyone. Yeah. Or I've like given everything that I have to give. But if I'm also intentional on my drive home, I'll think about some of those things and either like let them go, or if I need to act on them, I'll act on them. Like, you know, if someone told me something catastrophic happened, like what's my next step? Do I think about them and kind of send something out to them, or do I reach out and say, hey, like totally thinking about you, what can I do? Or is it just me genuinely thinking about them, or you know, offering what I have in that regard as well. So both directions are kind of different for me, especially depending on what kind of day I've had.
Totally.
So it's cool.
Awesome. So that's like taking advantage of the time you have to travel to work, or when you are in your car going to work. That would be an amazing start to a day.
Totally.
Awesome. Where do we go next?
We can talk about meals when you finally get your break time, when you're getting some time for getting away from your desk or whatever, just to try to get a mental or physical break from what you're doing. Also, what I always think about doing is, like you said, a break. Get out and just clear your head. Go for a walk outside. If you have a little area where there's like some trees, grassy area, just do something just to walk. Even this might be kind of wild, but take off your shoes and kind of get a little bit of grounding going on a little bit.
I don't think that's weird at all. I think that's awesome.
If you're in a corporate world, people might kind of look at you kind of weird, but you never know.
Dude, the other day I was upstairs doing work, and Natalie yelled at me. She's like, "You need to go outside." Like, we don't think like, and honestly, she was like, "It is recharging me." She had been sitting outside on one of the mats, like doing some work outside, and I was like, yeah, okay." And I went outside and literally just sitting in the sun for like 10 minutes, like I felt better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get stuck underneath these fluorescent lights all day long.
Sure.
And I think that's a super important thing. Like, get outside.
Get outside, do something. And then for you, when it is time to eat, get away from if you're in a corporate area, just get away from your desk. Get away from the phone, get away from the computer, get away from all that. Try to get away from any kind of noise. If you have some people that you like to have lunch with, great. You can join them. Just try to get away and just kind of not think about work and just kind of give your mind a mental break to do that. I used to, when I remember working in the corporate world, sometimes I would have lunch at my desk and I would work through lunch.
Yeah.
It wasn't the best day. That would not be a perfect thing to do. No. Even if you can go get lunch a little bit earlier, just to get some alone time, just to get some quiet, not hear any of the phone ring, people talk, just get a nice, easy mental break from everything. And also make sure you get a decent lunch. Don't get anything fast foodish. Something healthy, something that's going to benefit you, something that's going to help you get through the rest of the day. Don't get something that's going to be carb heavy and not macro dense foods. Just get something that's going to help you get through that afternoon.
Yeah, some good veggies, some
lean
protein. Yeah, some good fats like some avocado or some nuts or something like that. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's important. One of my, my sister is a great example of this. Is she basically runs her company and she's not in charge of her company. You know what I mean? Like she's that person where everything just gets dumped on her desk, and she's become like, I'm like, so what do you do at your job? And she's like, can't tell me, because she literally does everything because she's such an amazing person. And they know that if they give her any tasks, it will get done, because she was that person that Brett was, where she'll work through lunch and she'll sit there and eat at her desk, and won't get up for 9, 10, 11, 12 hours.
Right.
And she'll be the person where people are like, hey, I'm out of here. And she's like, okay, see you later.
Bye.
And then 2 hours later, she's the last person there. Nobody's been there for 2 hours and she's still working.
Right.
Because she's just such a type A personality, doesn't make excuses, and is an amazing person, right? But to the detriment of her own health.
Right.
And so she started, like, basically every hour she would get up away from her desk and just simply walk and go get some water. And on her walk, just like say what's up to a couple people, you know, like just, oh, hey, so-and-so, like, how's it going? Whatever. And that was enough to just kind of like clear her mind. And she said that when she went back to her desk, like she felt like more energized. Like she was like able to get back into the work that she was doing with like a new vigor and like a new ability, like new thoughts and new ideas and new, I'm sure there's some, you know, physiological things that are happening, like getting blood flowing, getting oxygen to circulate to the brain, which is going to help. But we can only really concentrate on something for so much time anyways, you know? So if you're really sitting at your desk, this happens with me with programming all the time, where I'll sit there and I'll get on this like really good groove with programming. And in my opinion, programming is an art. And you'll get in this like very creative space and you're like, man, I'm crushing it. And then all of a sudden you kind of start to feel foggy and you start to be like, and so you try to kind of grind through that and work into it and just be like, no, it's okay. It'll come back to me. And right then and there is exactly when you need to like
stop,
get up, take your shoes off, go earth, get out in the sun and walk and do something. And then I've found that as I've gotten better at that, where I pull myself out of the type A personality of like, grind through it, you could do it. And I go, no, just stop, get up, go out back. And I'll usually just go outside with Joey and walk around the grass, and we'll swing for a little bit or something like that. And I'll get in some sun, and then I go sit back down, and it's like,
it's back.
Or honestly, I'll change a bunch of stuff I even did before.
That's the best.
Because I'll be like, oh, this would be even better if I did, you know, and stuff. And it's like everything is always better if I have those little breaks like you're talking about, Brett, to just get away from the desk for a second. And I find I'm way more productive and I'm way better. So usually one of the things we talked about before we got on the podcast is that, like, what if, you know, you have this project that you have to do and it's got to get done and your boss is like, got to do this. Really what the boss cares about and what we care about is the finished product. Is the finished product what they wanted or exceeds their expectations? Usually sitting in front of your desk and grinding away for hours on end and getting into that mode of like not being creative anymore, hating your work, that kind of stuff, like leads to a crappy product at the end. And so you'd be better off usually taking more breaks, taking time to get up, get away from your desk, that kind of stuff, and then get back to it.
There's also been some reports that people that work overtime or beyond their normal 8 hours in a day, that extra time, even though they're spending more time on their project, they're less productive during that time frame.
It's more about productive work than it is about work, right?
Right.
I mean, we could put that back into the gym Like, I'd rather have an athlete that spends an hour working out and is very
Intensely.
productive with that hour and uses intensity with it versus somebody who just kind of plots through stuff for 4 hours a day.
Right.
And a lot of people in the CrossFit community
Do that.
Yeah, you'll see people that work out 4 to 6 hours a day, but really with no intensity or intention.
Right.
And they never get better. So
All the way.
that's great.
Oops, sorry,
Ruka's is exemplifying the perfect day right now.
I just accidentally stepped on her and she didn't even move.
She's decompressing for sure. Cool, guys. So you're done with work. You're heading home. This is like, I think one of the really important things for me is, and something that I'm horrible at doing, but really trying to get better, is ending your day at a certain time every day, right? So I'm the worst at this because, like, I schedule on-ramps whenever anybody wants to schedule an on-ramp, I'll do it for you. I was here at 5:30 a.m. because somebody had to switch it last minute last night. And I was supposed to do it at 9:30 this morning with them. And they messaged me last night, hey, I can't do it at 9:30. Can you do it at 5:30? And I'm the yes man. Yeah, totally. I'll do it. And I got 4 hours of sleep last night, because it was at 10:30.
Yeah.
And then I'll be the person that somebody, hey, can you help me out with this? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm really starting to set up those parameters, where my goal now is that I leave the gym at 5 p.m. I'm at the gym around 8 and I leave at 5. And if you fit within that time parameter, come on in. But if you don't, I'm sorry. Because now Joey's getting older. I want to be able to spend more time with her. I know she's going to start remembering things now. Like, this is the time where she's going to create memories, and she's going to remember me spending time with her. And she's going to remember if Dad was home at night eating dinner with family or if Dad was at work. And I don't want to be that dad. You know what I mean? And I want to make her breakfast in the morning. And I think I'm lucky that I've set up a business that I can hopefully do that. And now we have, like, the help that we need, with our awesome coaches that we have and everything, and the business that we've created. And so I think that that's the next step, is that you set up parameters around your work. What time do you get to work and what time do you go home? And at that time, you put your work away and you go home and you leave your work at work.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That's my worst one.
Well, and it's really hard when you actually enjoy your work.
Right.
So if you don't hate your job and you actually like the stuff you're doing, that's when it becomes even worse. Like, I find myself all the time at home programming or working on nutrition work or the business or whatever it is, because it's not necessarily something I hate. I really enjoy it. And so, but then it's also taken away from your family time and your time to yourself and everything. So set up that finish time.
Yeah. And that's a tough one because a lot of times, like you said, you get communications at nighttime when other people are getting off their work. Mm-hmm. I'll sometimes be getting done coaching. I'll come back, I get home, having done with my wife, and then I might get messages about nutrition meetings or questions on stuff. And she's like, what are you looking at on your phone?
Yep.
So
that's one of the things me and Meg were talking about with the one-on-ones and the on-ramps and the nutrition meetings and stuff that we have, is that most people, they don't recognize how important those things are in their lives. They see it as a luxury outside of that, and they expect that if they're going to spend time as luxury, that person should be able to conform to their lives. So a lot of times it will be like, hey, we have on-ramps at 4 p.m. And what's the first thing everybody says?
I'm working.
I'm working. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? But if it was a doctor's appointment and they were like, we have an opening at 4 p.m.
Okay, I'll switch work around.
Right? People would be like, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll get off work and I'll come to the doctor's office in order to make that time. Because it's just been ingrained into our social, economical circumstances that,
right.
Well, that's a normal thing. Of course, doctor's offices are only open from X amount of time, so I'll make it work. But when it comes to nutrition or working out or any of the field that we're in, they feel that person should conform to their life because this is an extra thing that they're doing type of thing. And I think that's one of the big things we're going to try to change. Is that now I did it this morning and I was really proud of myself. I have a one-on-one next week and the girl was like, hey, can you do it at this time? And it was outside of those times. And I said, nope, I could do it at 4. Mm-hmm. And I hit send and I was like, oh God, that she's going to say no and she's not going to be able to come in and then we're going to lose that membership is what was going through my head. Did she email back 10 minutes ago and said, cool, I'll see you at 4.
Right.
Awesome.
And so it's like
you don't know unless you
set up those parameters and you set up those times and everything. And so now we're switching to we're going to have our on ramps at certain times every week, and it's just, hey, you can make it or you can't.
Right.
And that's the way it works.
Cool.
And because this stuff is, and it is more important than going to the doctor's office. Because if you spend time on your nutrition and your health and you're working out,
You don't have to
You're
go to the
not
doctor.
gonna
you
go.
don't have to go to the doctor's
exactly.
office.
Right.
So take the time for that stuff. So I think setting up your guys' parameters for your workday and then sticking within those parameters is very important. This will also allow you to get to the gym, right? Like, so if you're like, hey, I'm done working at 5 p.m. instead of 5:15 or 5:30 in order to get those last few things done, and then you miss the 6:30 class because of traffic, and then you miss a day of working out. You know what I mean? It's more important that you stay healthy and that you go to bed on time so that you can be more productive at work and you can be happier and healthier and live a longer time and be a better asset to that company anyway. So set up your parameters and try to stick to that as much as possible. And we'll talk about, we understand all this stuff doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like such a jerk, like trying to tell people to do this when I'm the worst at this, you know? But I'm working on it myself, and that's one of the big reasons why we're doing this podcast is it's helping me, myself, go, okay, you got to start doing this
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So get home, and then when you're at home, set up on your phone. If you guys go into your settings, there are parameters you could set up on your phone to turn things off, like Instagram and Facebook and emails and all those things. So I have my phone set up now that at 5 p.m., all social media on my phone gets turned off. Mm-hmm. The worst part is that you could hit like remind me in 15 minutes, or you know, you can hit
ignore
like,
for now,
ignore for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times I'll do that, but
It's there, so
but at least it's
still a
pointing
mental
you in the
reminder.
face. Exactly. And so set up those parameters on your phone that when you go home, it's, you know, no more social media, no more any of that nonsense and stuff, and then be present with your family and have dinner and go to bed on time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think just like Wes said, it's super important to acknowledge that doesn't always happen. Mm-hmm. Like all of these things that we've broken down don't always happen. And how you react to that is going to carry over to the next time you try to do it. And like we talked about before we started, like to-do lists, and I'm notorious for to-do lists. I have them everywhere. Like I have them in my phone notes. I have them in an app. I have them in a hard copy. Yep. Like I have to-do lists. I think there's just a lot in my brain. I
have 3 different notes apps.
Google Keep notes.
Yes, exactly. I have Google Keep. But Google Keep is my like real one.
Right.
My notes is my like kind of fake one. But I went back and looked at my notes one the other day, and I was like, "There's some important shit on here."
I got to remember to keep these. Yeah, it's so. For instance, I can write a whole to-do list and sit down and look at it and really acknowledge that there's no possible way that I'm going to get all of that done in the margin of time that I have to do those things. And so, I mean, I try all the time. I'll write it all down and I'll try to get it done. But I've gotten better at not shaming myself for not getting those things done. And a way that I do that is I write 2 different to-do lists in 2 different notebooks. I do totally have 2 different notebooks, but
I wish I had it. I have 2 notebooks upstairs.
So bad. And I do one that's like, it's like a brain dump. Like I get everything, like creative things and like things that I dream about and things with family, like all of that stuff that I want to have margin to do in my day. I'll put all of that on one list with like the general to-dos that I have. And then I'll look at that list and think about like my timelines, like what things need to be done by a certain time. And then I'll prioritize them. So I need to get these done by this date. Therefore, I actually do have to work on it. Whereas like if I'm dreaming about something or writing a blog post that doesn't have a timeline or something like that, it can be a little bit more in my, if I have margin for this, I know it's life-giving, so I'm going to put it here. And then a lot of the time, Wes had mentioned that if he doesn't get to something or like when you get foggy while programming, you like go outside. Sometimes I'll just switch gears. Like I'm having a hard time getting through this, and I know that this creative task that I've been working on is going to give me some life, or like doodling, or I doodle a lot, or drawing, these kinds of things that people have asked me to do. I'll work on that and then go back to my more tedious tasks, and it tends to be life-giving like that for me as well. So acknowledging that I don't have the capacity to get everything done, and when I don't complete my to-do list, to sit back and say like, that's okay. I got this done, and there's tomorrow as well. And I can put it on my tomorrow to-do list, and I can probably check it off then. So being...
Add another to-do list. To-do list.
My to-do list of my to-do list. But being tender with yourself, too, and realizing that it doesn't... When you don't cross it off, it doesn't devalue you as a human. I think that that's important.
Yeah, I get in that mode a lot, where you look at your notes at the end of the day, and you didn't do...
Right.
1, 2, 3, and 4, you know?
So it's like a front end and a tail end thing. Front end, you're not a superhuman. You don't have 48 hours in a day. You can't get all of this done, Natalie. And then on the tail end, that's okay. You didn't get that done. Where can it go now? Like reassessing those kinds of things and making sure you're not getting stuck in the trap of like, I didn't do that again. Like I suck. I didn't do that. But reshaping it, I have tomorrow. I can do this now. So.
Yeah. John Berardi from Precision Nutrition.
Yeah.
He always says, like, what's the least amount that I can do every day to be the happiest? So, like, what's the least amount that I can work out every week to be happy with the way I look and feel? What's the least amount of work I can do that will actually still give me a job and, like, the ability to pay my bills and stuff? And, like, I feel as we age and get older, we do the opposite. We add more to that list every single day. And like the other day, I sat down and literally wrote out everything that I need to do, like, or thought I needed to do. Right. And I would have had to have 37 hours in a day to get it done if I were to have 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
And I'm like, that's okay. So that's physically impossible. So
this isn't going to work.
Now what am I going to do? And so that's when we started delegating. You know what I mean? And the hard part with delegating is that it's money. So if I delegate a task to somebody, that means we have to pay for it. But it's been totally worth it.
Right.
Because the product is way better in the long term, you know? So.
Well, and also living with the fact that, I mean, you might think, I can probably do this better than, because I know what I want, and this is what I want. But.
Yes.
It's going to be better off in the long run for you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the hard part, is like relinquishing that, like, because you always feel like you can do it the best.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And then you get into a groove and you find the way to do it, and you're like, well, no, this is how it's done. And nobody's ever going to, number one, be able to do it that well as I feel like I do. You know what I mean? But I've never given somebody the opportunity, so I have no idea. And usually everybody always exceeds my expectations anyways. You know, and I'm like, oh, that's way better than I ever would have done it. You know, but it just takes time to learn those types of things. So cool, guys. All right, so let's recap real quick. First thing, number one, go back and listen to the Perfect Morning podcast if you haven't listened to that yet. And then if you have travel time, how can you make that more productive? What kind of podcasts do you like to listen to? What kind of audiobooks would be great for you to listen to? Are you in a career field that you could use those platforms to learn from? Like for us, for example, I mean, I'm constantly listening to podcasts on CrossFit and nutrition and small business owner and that kind of stuff all the time. And then using that time to also kind of decompress maybe on the way home. So thinking about, like, what was your day like? Were you able to accomplish the tasks you wanted to, or the people that you should reach out to, like Natalie said? And then from there, setting up parameters around your day. So what time do you get to work? And then what time are you done with work? And being done with work. While you're at work, like Brett mentioned, setting up time to decompress, get away from the desk, go walk outside, have a moment to talk to other people, making sure that you're setting up your times to eat, right? And what types of fuel are you fueling yourself with? Are they whole food, good, things like veggies and meat and nuts and seeds, or is it packaged food and going to the burger joint down the street? When you guys do get home, set up some parameters on you guys' phone where you're not, just constantly on social media and stuff like that. So if you guys go into your settings on your iPhone, there are little parameters you could set up where you could turn your social media off at certain times and be present with your family at night, and turn off, close the laptop and don't work and those types of things. And then try to get to bed at a reasonable hour. I mean, the ideal is 8 hours of sleep every night, but 7 is great and 6 is better if you're getting 5, so where are you at now, and how can you make that just a little bit better from where you're at now? So I guess the ideal day would be wake up on a beach and, in Hawaii
exactly.
and have somebody feed you all day long, But this is the ideal day for a normal human being who has an 8-to-5 job, I guess we could say.
Cool,
you guys. Be on the lookout. We got part 3 coming soon on the ideal nighttime routine. And I think that this one's going to be super important.
Yeah.
When it comes to like actual recovery standpoint, being healthy, that type of stuff, sleep is, man, the base of the pyramid right next to nutrition, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that'll be a big one coming up soon. If you guys haven't tried Ruble Roasting, you guys should try it. And we have a code for you guys to get a little bit off. So if you guys go to rubleroasting.com, get yourself some coffee and use the code Coast Range, right?
Coast Range, yes.
Coast Range, and you get a percentage off of your order. What makes them special is that they only roast the beans after you order them. So it's the freshest beans that you will ever get. And it's amazing, and you're supporting a small business. This guy does this by himself in his backyard. He's trying to create a business for him and his family. He just had a brand new baby, too. And PJ is an awesome man, so we definitely want to support him. We want to say thank you to everybody who came out to our meal prep seminar this last Saturday at Coast Range CrossFit. We had Chef Diana Mash here. Thank you, Chef Diana, for coming out and sharing your amazing tips and tricks on how to meal prep for the week. It was really awesome. I think the Instapot stock went up about 10% after that.
I'm glad to hear that she had an Instapot there.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was talking about it, and then I saw like that night Christina and Kyle posted like they got their Instapot.
We were looking at it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's
Seriously, it's the best thing ever.
yeah.
I'm
So
a believer.
it was super cool. If you did show up, I have your emails, and be on the lookout. I'm going to be sending you guys that Excel spreadsheet on the grocery shopping list and the meal prep guide and the PowerPoint that she had. So that's coming out soon too. Coming up in the future, I feel like we got some stuff coming up at the gym. Oh, next week we're giving away another raffle prize. Yeah, so Bear Complex, Junkhead Brands, Gators Eyewear, Sage Float Spa.
Can they still buy
Challenge
tickets
Me
for
swag.
the?
Challenge Me swag.
Can they still buy tickets for the
For
raffle?
sure.
Yes. Tickets are at Coast Range CrossFit, CrossFit Up, CrossFit Santa Cruz Central. Anywhere else?
Just us.
So those 3 places you can go to, and you could buy a ticket. 1 for $10, 3 for $20, and that puts you in the raffle to win that gift prize. It's like a Bear Complex duffel bag or gym bag, 2 pairs of grips, a Bear Complex hip circle, some coffee from Cat and Cloud. What else?
Sage stuff.
Sage. There's a float. There's a sauna. There's also Junkhead Brands headbands in there. There's a couple shaker bottles.
Like Challenge Me training stuff. Yeah.
It's like $3,000 or something.
I don't know
like
if it's $3,000. I think it's like $1,300
$30 million of.
They're really rad. Like I would like to have one of them.
Yeah, it's like $1,300 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
That you could win for like $10.
Yep.
Is there still CSRC shirts available to buy?
Yes, and then we still have our CRSC Coast Range Santa Cruz shirts available. Few limited.
Yeah, there's just a few
left. Those are $30, and all that proceeds goes to helping us pay to go to Brazil and represent the 2 gyms at the games, hopefully. So, yeah.
Cool.
All right, guys. If you have any questions, please hit us up at Coast Range Podcast on Instagram.
The Coast Range Podcast.
The Coast Range Podcast, because there's so many others out there.
Exactly.
Steal that name. Or at Coast Range Nutrition. Natalie, where can they find you if they have questions for you?
At Nat Loves You 22.
Yes, she does. Brett?
Nutrition_by_Brett.
Awesome. You guys can find me at Wes Pyatt 2013 on Instagram. Shoot me some DMs, and I'll help you out. Talk to you guys later.
See you guys.
Bye.